Alright, so I'm going to be talking about absolute value in this video. This is the absolute value notation. It's you have some number or term and you have two big lines going on either side of it, and those are absolute value lines. All it does is that it takes whatever number is inside of the absolute value lines and it just makes it into a positive. That's literally it. So the absolute value of -5 would be 5. The absolute value of -x would be x. And the absolute value of 5 would still be 5 because it just makes everything positive. A good way to think of this would be in terms of distance. Like, let's say we have the number 2. Well, 2 is 2 units from 0, right? And let's say we also have the point -2. -2 is also 2 units from 0. Even though they're on opposite sides of the number line, and one of them's positive and one of them's negative, it's the distance that is still the same. Like if you were driving to Disneyland and it's like 50 miles from your house, so here's you, here's Disneyland, and you go there, 50 miles. Well, then you also have to come back at the end of the day. I know it's sad, but you do. And that's still 50 miles, even though it's the opposite direction. And like on a coordinate plane, that would be like if this is, an XY axis, that would be one way, so positive, and then the other way would be negative. So this would be a negative 50 miles. But you can't really travel a negative distance, right? I mean, I know I can't. So that's why we say that this is just still a positive 50 miles. You still traveled 50 miles, even though it's in the opposite direction. So I'm just going to give an example of problem of how you can use this. Like, let's say we had the absolute value of x minus 1 is equal to 2. So we're trying to get some value of x so that the absolute value of this, or the number inside of this, is either 2 or -2. Because if the number inside of the absolute value is -2, well, the absolute value is still going to make it a positive 2 at the end of the day. So we know that this x minus 1 can either equal 2, like here, or it could equal -2 because this absolute value is going to make it a 2 anyway. So this is going to be an x minus 1 is equal to -2. So now we can just solve both equations. This is x minus 1 is equal to 2, so x is going to be 3. X minus 1 is equal to -2, so x is going to be -1. So you can actually have two values when it comes to absolute value. And essentially, all you have to do is just, to solve for absolute value, is take the number inside the absolute value, take the expression inside the absolute value and set it equal to the positive form of this, the thing that it's set equal to, or the negative form, and you'll get both answers. Okay, so I'm just going to do a really quick example problem that's a little bit more, I guess, complicated. So we are trying to solve for x, meaning we have two terms on this side of the equation and one on this side, and we want to just isolate the variable x. So we can add 4 to both sides. We're just solving this like any other equation. This is going to get us to 2. Oh, and this 2 right next to the absolute value, it just means it's multiplying to the absolute value. So like this. And then, so because this is multiplying to that, it means you can divide on both sides, do the inverse operation, so that cancels out. And we get x plus 5, or absolute value of x plus 5 is equal to 12. And just like before, when you have an absolute value set equal to something and you're trying to solve for a variable in the absolute value, you can take the expression inside the absolute value, set it equal to the original other side of the equation, and you have to set it equal to the negative of the other side of the equation. And if this was a -12, then you'd have to set this equal to, actually, this can't be a -12, right? Because this absolute value automatically is going to make it positive. So this number always has to be positive. So if this number here is negative, like let's say this was like a -20 or something, then you added 4, then you know that there would be no values of x that could get you to that negative number. So there are no solutions for that. But thankfully this is a positive number, so it's fine. So yeah, you set it equal to the positive and then the negative version of that. You solve for this, so x is going to be equal to 7, and then you solve for this, and x is going to be equal to negative 17. And if you want to check, you can. So you can plug this back in, x plus 5 is equal to 12. Absolute value of that, still 12. Negative 17 plus 5 is equal to negative 12. The absolute value of that is 12, so both work.